Angela Craig was a vibrant 43-year-old mom of 6 who seemed to have it all, until she suddenly fell deathly sick on March 2023. What started as dizziness and fatigue quickly spiraled into multiple hospitalizations, and within days, she was brain dead. Her husband, James Craig, a Colorado dentist with a long history of infidelity, had been researching poisons and ordering cyanide, arsenic, and I'm not even going to try and say this, tetrahydrozoline. I like how I said that I wasn't going to try and say it, and then I immediately tried to say it. Prosecutors say he slipped these into a protein shake as a calculated plan to kill her and avoid a costly divorce. But the twist? Even after her death, James didn't stop scheming. He allegedly tried to frame Angela as suicidal, recruit inmates to plant evidence, and even put out a hit on the lead detective. Want the full case? Go to listen to the full episode on our site, murderandlove.com, and you won't believe how deep this case goes. But what today's episode is an update of this case. So if you didn't hear the case of James Craig before, then the link is in the show notes below. You can also find it on our website, murderandlove.com, and listen to that case before you come and listen to this update. So James Craig's murder trial started on Tuesday, July 15th, 2025. He pleaded not guilty to his charges of first-degree murder, solicitation to commit murder in the first degree, 2 counts of solicitation to commit tampering with physical evidence, and 2 counts of solicitation to commit perjury in the first degree. The trial went over 12 days and wrapped up with closing arguments on July 29th. The prosecution, led by Assistant DA Ryan Brackley and Senior Chief Deputy DA Michael Mario, laid out what they called an absolutely stunning case. Now, you know it has to be insane for it to be absolutely stunning. Witness after witness, document after document, and evidence, quote, never stopped getting worse. They called nearly 50 people to the stand and submitted more than 10,000 pages of documents and 2 terabytes of data. Do you know how big 2 terabytes is? Their argument was that James poisoned his wife over a 10-day span with arsenic, cyanide, and tetrahydrozoline. Angela, they said, had no idea what was happening to her and played no role in her own death. James's motive was that he wanted out of his marriage, but he didn't want to deal with the financial mess of divorce. They said he saw murder as a cheaper, easier option and spent days ordering poisons and researching how to get away with it. Here's what the prosecution brought to court. Number 1, they talked about the poison trail. Toxicology confirmed lethal levels of cyanide and tetrahydrozoline, I'm probably saying it wrong by now, in his wife's system. Medical experts testified that Angela's symptoms matched cyanide poisoning, and her levels actually went up after she was hospitalized. Number 2, his search history. He looked up, quote, how to make murder look like a heart attack. Also, quote, is arsenic detectable? Also, quote, fatal dose of cyanide, and more searches. Number 3, the receipts. He had ordered arsenic, cyanide, and cases of Visine. Potassium cyanide was also shipped to his dental office. Did you, sir, have a receipt for arsenic? And did you hold a receipt for your records, I guess your business records, for cyanide? I mean, that is meticulous bookkeeping right there. Number 4, they talked about how he did it. Surveillance footage and testimony showed him mixing protein shakes for Angela in a pink lid shaker cup. He also wrote a note on his phone admitting that he'd filled capsules with cyanide and prepped a syringe. Did you write notes on your phone? Are you serious? Dear Diary, I want to write about how I'm just going to fill these capsules with cyanide and prep a syringe. Number 5, they talked about his motive. Multiple affair partners testified for the prosecution. One even said that James had once joked about, quote, purging his wife. Another said that he had complained that a divorce would leave him broke. You know how you don't go through a divorce that would leave you broke? I don't know, don't cheat on her. Like, If you're so worried about how a divorce is going to leave you, then just stay unhappy in your marriage. That's literally it. Like, just stay unhappy in your marriage then. Otherwise, get a divorce and be a big boy. His text messages and behavior painted a picture of a man desperately trying to escape his marriage. Number 6, they brought forth his former cellmates who said David tried to plant fake journals, create a deep fake video of Angela confessing suicidal thoughts, and even offered money to take out Detective Bobby Olson. He told one cellmate that it was just a, quote, game of chicken. Number 7, they brought forth Angela's journal. It was entered into evidence to shut down the suicide theory. Angela wrote about heartbreak and betrayal, but never once about suicide. Even though most of the case was circumstantial, it was a lot of circumstantial that looked like it was hard evidence. Everything pointed to the same thing. Prosecutors didn't need a smoking gun. They built a story that when you looked at everything all together, it painted a picture of a man who wanted out of his marriage so badly, he chose murder over divorce. A man who wasn't just cheating, he was scheming, calculating, and willing to go to disturbing lengths to rewrite the story. Now, defense attorney Lisa Moses didn't argue that Angela wasn't poisoned or that she didn't die. How would you have argued that she didn't die because she's literally buried? Okay. She acknowledged both were true because, literally all the facts were there. She can't not acknowledge it. But what the defense was going to do was all about injecting doubt, questioning the state's version of events and pointing fingers at what they claimed was a flawed investigation. They didn't call a single witness. Instead, they leaned hard on the idea that the case was built on, quote, assumptions, speculations, and tunnel vision. Like, my thing is, literally, you acknowledge she was poisoned, and I guess you had to acknowledge that she was dead. But as a defense, even though you know you're holding a murderer, you're deciding to inject doubt. In opening statements, defense attorney Ashley Whitman described Angela as broken by James's cheating and still committed to making the marriage work. She told the jury not to get swayed by emotion or how much they disliked James's behavior, just to focus on whether the state actually proved their case. Are you also going to tell them not to look at the facts and everything like that? Because, the facts are there and you're literally just acting like they're stupid. Don't think about how much you don't like how James acts right now. Just focus on if the state is actually telling the truth. Not us. No, not us. The state. The defense argued that it was still, quote, unclear how Angela ingested the poison, and there was still no, quote, definitive evidence that James actually gave it to her. How else? Okay, I'm not even going to ask. They painted the Craigs as a, quote, complex but loving couple, saying James was a, quote, flawed husband, sure, but not a killer. The defense also claimed that the Craigs weren't strapped for cash. Their mortgage was paid off, the house was worth about $1 million, and they already had $4 million in life insurance. So why would James kill Angela? Let me. My hand is raised. I can answer that. Because he literally said that he would go broke trying to divorce her. So even though he had all this money, he didn't want to lose even $1 of his money to divorce. Because in his head, he probably would have lost half of everything he had, which he would have still been a millionaire, but he was just a less of a millionaire. So that's why he wanted to kill her instead of get a divorce. Then the defense leaned into Angela's journal entries, calling her, quote, emotionally vulnerable, and suggesting she may have been manipulative or desperate to maintain a perfect image due to their Mormon faith. So she would write in her journal where nobody's looking and still try to keep that perfect image, quote unquote. Is that what you're trying to tell me? Nobody's looking in her journal, but she's still trying to be fake in her journal? They tried to float the idea that she took her own life and even used James's iPhone note where he claimed Angela had asked him to help her die. So you used his iPhone note that he wrote himself to point that as proof that Angela was suicidal? Bombastic side eye. They also went after the investigation, pointed out that not all devices in the home were searched. The hospital sharps containers weren't checked, and there were gaps in the surveillance footage. So you're blaming Angela and you're blaming the hospital, but you're not blaming James. Got it. They also tried to frame James's initial cooperation with police as a sign of innocence. In the end, the defense threw everything they could at the wall: spaghetti, the kitchen sink, their firstborn child. But even without a single eyewitness or signed confession, the state's case was layered with damning details. The evidence may have been circumstantial, but it told a consistent, horrific story. Every search, every purchase, every shady move painted James as a man who wanted a clean slate, no strings, no divorce court, no financial hit. Like I said, he wanted to keep every single penny of his millions. Even though, like I said, if she walked away with half, he'd still been in the millions, and all he had to do was rebuild. During closing arguments, prosecutor Mario said James, quote, lied and fabricated false narratives, and everything pointed to him. Assistant DA Brackley said reading James's own words in context was very, very difficult, especially knowing what he was really planning. On July 30th, 2025, after 2 full days and more than 8 hours of deliberation, the jury came back with their decision. James Craig was found guilty on every charge the prosecution brought against him. Guilty of first-degree murder for poisoning his wife. Guilty of soliciting Casey Bohannon to tamper with evidence. Guilty of soliciting Nathaniel Harris to commit first-degree murder. And guilty of soliciting Hassani Constantinides to commit perjury in the first degree. He was found not guilty of the lesser charge of manslaughter by aiding suicide, which the defense had specifically asked the jury to consider. The jury rejected that theory completely. The prosecution said, quote, he was convicted on all charges, and the not guilty verdict was for a charge the defense introduced, not the state. Immediately after the verdict was read, Judge Shea Whitaker handed down James's sentence. Life in prison without the possibility of parole for first-degree murder. Mandatory in Colorado. On top of that, James received the maximum sentences for each of the other charges, all to be served consecutively. Then came the victim impact statements. Angela's eldest daughter stood in front of the court and said, quote, life and the world will truly never be the same without my mom. She then described the pain of losing her hero and realized that her hero was her mom, not her father. Quote, he was supposed to be my hero, and instead he'll forever be a villain in my book. During her statement, James sobbed openly. Angela's sister, Toni Kofoed, told James that he was, quote, dishonest, a cheat, and a heartless excuse of a human being, praising Angela as, quote, the picture of hope and optimism, a woman who never stopped trying to love a man who didn't deserve her. Another sister, Catherine Prey, called him a pretender and a liar and a snake in the grass. Angela's brother, Mark Prey, asked him to at least apologize to their parents, who stood in the hospital room as their daughter slipped away, quote, so they don't have to suffer anymore, he said. Judge Whitaker told James that he left behind, quote, a path of destruction as wide as a tornado and just as devastating. Prosecutor Amy Patton called it justice for Angela, quote, he vowed to love, protect, and honor her, and instead he deceived her. He cheated on her, he lied to her, and he killed her. Angela's family said they're elated knowing James will never be able to do this to another person. And while his legal team will almost certainly appeal, prosecutors say they're more than ready to defend this conviction in higher court. What started as a mystery, an otherwise healthy woman suddenly collapsing, ended with a staggering amount of evidence, a courtroom full of heartbreak, and a jury that didn't buy a single word of James Craig's lies. What do you think about this update? Like I said, if you missed the first case that talked about the entire thing, please go back and listen to it because it's crazy. So go back and listen to that. The link to it is in the show notes below, or you could just go to the website, murderandlove.com, and just search James Craig's name, and it'll bring up the... Also, what I'm going to try and do is find videos of the entire trial and put it in the Patreon. So that's part of like bonuses you get as a Lamb subscriber. So at the $3 a month tier, not only do you get ad-free and commercial-free episodes, but you get the case files, case extras, stuff like that, which is pictures of the crime scene, pictures of the victim and of the perpetrator, and videos of the trial if I'm able to find it. So I believe there's videos of the trial of this case, and if I could find all of them, then I'll put the trial together in the Patreon from day 1 to day 12 if you want to catch the entire trial. Patreon.com/Love and Murder. You can get that at the $3 a month tier, or you can get any of the higher tiers and you'll get those same bonuses plus more. And like I told you in Monday's case, the reason why I even started the Patreon or even tell y'all about the Patreon in every episode is because this show is listener funded. I did try to do the sponsor route, but sponsors usually tell you how they want to hear the case told, and usually they don't want you like passing the blame, even though you can clearly see that people are doing stuff wrong, and they don't want you to do that. They just want you to tell the story like, a robot. But I come out here, I'm the voice of the victim. I think about how the family feels, how frustrated they are. You know what I'm saying? So I relay that. And I don't want to change the way that I tell the cases. I don't want to change the way that I tell the story. I've had so many friends of victims, family of victims reach out to me and tell me that they really feel they get like closure or they get some sense of peace in the way that I tell the case. So this is for the voice of the victims. Why would I not listen to their family and instead listen to sponsors just for money? You know what I'm saying? So this podcast is listener funded. I want y'all to be the sponsors. Y'all have an opportunity to be the voice of the victim. You are the only ones who can tell me how to run this show. So as the sponsors of the show, you would be the ones who say, hey, Kai, don't do this or do this. And this is why I reach out to you to join the Patreon. I don't want free money. I'm giving you a service. When you join the Patreon, you get extra. So you get more cases and you get more work that I put into the podcast. So it's not free money I'm asking for. So if you want to go into the Patreon, check it out. You're under no contract, so if you want to cancel, you can cancel. But if you want to continue supporting the show, then that'll be greatly appreciated. You can start out as low as a $3 a month tier, and there are other tiers in there where you get more bonuses as the tiers go up. Patreon.com/Love and Murder. Thank you so much for joining me. Thank you so much for supporting the show, and I will see you in the next episode. Bye.